Mr. Gaurav Modi as the Ernst & Young Asian and Singapore Consulting Leader. Gaurav leads Ernst & Young teams to help organizations in the private and public sectors address transformation and industry disruption issues with a focus on technology, innovation, and people. Over the last 2 decades, Gaurav has led numerous acquisitions and major transformations across the Asia-Pacific region. These include electricity market deregulation in Singapore, telco transformation in the Philippines, Hong Kong, Malaysia, and customer experience transformation in Singapore. Mr. Gaurav Modi, I would like to welcome you on stage to introduce your panel members.
All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and what a wonderful session by the minister. Very inspiring, and the launch of the blueprint certainly is extremely beneficial to Singapore and I think broadly the region. So I'm delighted to welcome you to this insightful session on adapting to tech and evolving trends, Asia's digital enterprise journey. My name is Gaurav. I'm the EY, ASEAN and Singapore consulting leader, and I'll be the moderator for today. So I think before we start, let me just introduce our panel to you. Very esteemed panel. Maybe I'll start with Amitabh. Welcome, Amitabh, on the stage. Amitabh Sarkar, Senior Vice President and Head of APAC in Japan at Tata Communications. Amitabh has over 20 years experience excelling in driving business growth across various industry verticals, specialization in services, hybrid cloud, AI, and security. Thank you, Amitabh, for joining us.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Next, we have Chetan. Chetan Krishnamurthy, Vice President of Ecosystem and Digital Sales at IBM Asia Pac. Chetan's role in fostering growth through strategic partnerships and enhancing customer experience has been exemplary. Extensive background in R&D, marketing, sales, and product management, especially in enterprise AI solutions, which is so much relevant these days. And he has established himself as a key influencer in the tech industry. Welcome, Chetan.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Next, we have Liz. Liz Ortiguera, Managing Director of Asia Pac at the World Travel and Tourism Council. Liz's career, which spans over a quarter of a century, has seen her transition from a scientist, engineer to a strategic and marketing leader in the travel industry. Her leadership and innovation approach have been influential across the Asia Pac region. Welcome on board, Liz.
Thank you.
And lastly, we have Leemon, Senior Director of Corporate Strategy and Customer Divisions at Singapore Pools. Leemon's expertise draws from his experience as a business consultant in the financial and technology sector and invaluable in shaping corporate strategy and customer relationships. Thank you, Leemon. Thank you for joining us. So maybe I think... So I think before we start the session, maybe just a few pointers. I think as I was saying, the speech by SMS Tan was quite inspiring. I think launch of the industry blueprint, acceleration of AI, security, safety, scalability, and skills. I think this is every organization, what they're talking about. If I just kind of take a bit of a zoom out from an ASEAN perspective as well, we are a region with 650 million people, close to 3 trillion GDP. If you see the digital market has been growing absolutely really well. We're touching close to $300 billion in terms of business from a digital market perspective. The rise of AI, fintech, commerce is obviously propelling it. We look at the digital investments as well. I think we're hitting close to $70 billion odd investments if I look at the last 12 months, obviously propelled by cloud, infrastructure, data and AI technologies. So I think with that precursor, maybe, and we will start, with you, Leemon and Liz. I read a wonderful analogy, which is to quantify the pace of change. How do you quantify the pace of change? And the analogy said that in the next 100 years, we would see pace which is equivalent to 20,000 years of change. And we have to just let it sink in. That's how much acceleration in the world is. So that's the pace of change. The world around us is moving fast. Tech around us is moving fast. So in that context, what's your view in terms of how do organizations cope up with this level of change? What are the couple of things they need to do or to make sure they're doing to make sure they're adapting to change and they're coping up with change? Maybe we start with you, Leemon.
Sure. So before I start with the response, I I have to mention the fact that I come from a gambling company. So like the minister said, yeah, it's a way of losing money. But if you do like to gamble, play legal, play with Singapore Pools. Now that said, so the first thing I would say is if you want to get onto this journey, you better have a strategy in place. And a strategy shouldn't be just a collection of plans. It has to go a little bit beyond that. So that's the first thing. The second thing probably is culture. As you move into this AI space and digitalization, the way you do things is going to change. Whether you adopt agile technologies or AI, the culture within the company has to change. The results that you get could also be surprising. Again, the culture has to change. The second thing would be culture. The third thing is skills. So again, as the minister said, you have to have an ecosystem around you, partners, vendors, support system, institutions of higher learning. So these would be the three things that I would kind of think somebody who's starting off on this journey should probably be looking at.
Well, I'll start by also describing my ecosystem or my view. As World Travel and Tourism Council, we're the voice of the sector. And travel and tourism is a mega sector, which comprises of multiple industries from hospitality to aviation, some F&B, tour, events, local experiences. So it's a vast ecosystem, and we're in the business of real world experiences. And so when we look at tech, I mean, that's an important consideration is that, how does tech enable and bridge and support that vast ecosystem of human experiences? Now, in terms of the people in this mega sector, they range from, some of the tech giants too that have travel arms to aviation and hotels, but also it's a pyramid. We've got this vast network of SMEs, as the minister was emphasizing. And so you've got all these frontliners, many of whom may not have had a formal education. And so you're talking about, a big ecosystem, and how do you leverage digital in a responsible, enabling way for that world of experience? And so it's three things, quality of data and the structure. You can imagine no one wants to use AI and get sent to a location and the places are closed. So the data needs to be accurate and good. Two is governance. There's a myriad of safety and security issues that need to be considered in the travel and tourism world. And then the third would be innovation. As Minister Tan was emphasizing, we need to bring everyone along. Even the ones at the front line who have small businesses, who are one man or one woman operations. We need to bring everyone along with the digital enablement.
Thank you, Liz and Leemon. Very useful. Just maybe extending on it, I think cloud overall has played a big part in terms of bringing in a quicker speed to market, agility, scalability. Obviously, security is part of it as well. And we have seen the impact of it probably since 2010, where it just kind of picked up pace a lot. And there is a heavy consumption of cloud, I guess, in this region, within ASEAN region. Many of the countries are actually cloud-first countries, if you look at it, because they didn't have the baggage of legacy infrastructure. So maybe a question to you, Amitabh, and then Chetan, I guess, I think the initial wave of cloud leverage and consumption has progressed well last 15 odd years. How do you see it accelerating to the next level? What's the next phase of that growth from a cloud perspective? I was inspired again, I think, as SMS Tan said, in terms of how the big providers are also coming together with the industry, with the government to serve not only the biggest segment, but more inclusive in terms of the smaller segments in SMEs. So very keen to get your views as to how do you see it.
Check. So great question first, Gaurav. Synthesizing what Minister Tan said, and then you putting in the perspective of the acceleration of cloud adoption in our region. Couple of points, a few personal views. I think cloud has not been new. The agility and the velocity with which cloud is deployed is encouraging. However, I think the value captured out of the cloud is still isolated in pockets and subscale. So the good news is there is a massive headroom to grow, right? So that's the context. Now, if you ask me, what is the next wave which will go beyond cloud adoption? In my mind, 2 points which comes here. Adopting edge computing will become mainstream. If you look at data which clearly suggests a bulk of the companies are deploying edge at scale to gain more business capabilities and core functions. Now, if I give some examples across the work which we are doing with customers around the region, the multi-access edge platform which we have, which is a Kubernetes and open industry agnostic platform. So we have been working with a very large quick service chain restaurant which owns about 15,000 stores. And the problem statement, or what we are helping them, is to bring agility and scale. That is by giving operational efficiency and driving seamless agility across, seamless expansion across different stores. So the outcome of that work which we have done with the edge platform has helped reduce infrastructure by 50%. It has improved time to market by 70%. And 40% reduction in cost savings. So this is one example of how you bring agility and scale beyond a traditional cloud adoption, right? So this is one part. The second part is, I think, the first point I said is edge. The second is, I think, going beyond deploying cloud to cloud services and having flexible IT infrastructure. What I mean by that is, as the companies deploy cloud, to deliver more services which are business-led, there is a clear focus in most organizations and technology providers like us and IBM and the rest of the world, is to build industry clouds. To build industry clouds which will provide business outcome. And again, giving an example of the agility and scale which we have been able to do with a very large global integrated logistics provider, which has about 200 locations, have 200 locations, 110 countries. They wanted to move the legacy contact center platform to the cloud. Now that's a massive scale. And why this example makes sense to your question is, this whole migration from a legacy traditional contact center to cloud was done in 3 weeks across the globe. So that agility which brings time to market, that brings your cost savings, that brings additional repertoire of efforts which can bring in. I think that's the sum and substance of what would mean for agility and scale.
Thanks, Amitabh. Chetan, keen to get your views. Considering big IP, big assets from an IBM perspective, one of the first movers even from an AI perspective. So keen to get your views.
Thank you, Gaurav. Okay, so look, I kind of agree with what Amitabh said. I think, can't hear me? Okay, so I kind of agree with what Amitabh said. I think cloud is a destination. I think we all know cloud is a destination for workloads, right? That's where it starts from. But the core for all this is, how do you create business value, which means putting client in the center. You asked us, Gaurav, what is the driver, the next frontier of driver for cloud? I think it goes back to what Amitabh said, which is the basics, which is basically around creation of value. And creation of value obviously comes from understanding the business case, understanding why clients are actually doing this. How do you get them on a journey with cloud being a destination for some of these workloads which actually make up for creating that value, right? That's where it comes from. Now, if you see a few years ago, people said everything goes to public cloud, which again to me was a destination lens. Like everybody's moving to public cloud is the way to go. But move forward to 2024, we've come to a stage where it's multi-cloud. People are working with multiple hyperscalers. People are working with on-prem solutions. And now it's also hybrid cloud, because over the time, people have figured out that this is not about where you want to get to. It's about what makes sense for the organization, which means some of it will reside on public cloud, some will remain on-prem, some will go multi-cloud. The key, I think, is creation of value, having that framework that is value-centric, which is secure, something that I think, Liz, you spoke about, and creating a solution that draws the power from the ecosystem, which means embracing open technologies, which means harnessing solutions that can accelerate, go to market, and create value. So that's how I look at it, Gaurav. I think the driver for this is still business decisions and what you want to do for the clients versus.
No, thank you. Very,
platform.
very useful. I kind of picked up the parts around, I think, the value, the edge, and I think cloud, not from an infra perspective as well, building services, agility, I think, which kind of continues. No, I wouldn't do justice to my role if I don't talk about AI in this chat. And anyways, it's the next lever, right, from a cloud perspective, AI perspective. So maybe we can start with you, Liz. Keen to get your views as to how do you see your assessment of the uptake from an AI perspective at industrial scale, right? Are there some sectors which are probably the frontiers to take it? Are there some specific functions where the consumption is picked up a lot more as compared to others? So, first to you, Liz, and then to Leemon.
Sure. In travel and tourism, what I'm seeing is that there's good adoption of AI in terms of personalization, optimization of search, and also customer service with bot chats. Other applications include, for example, the seamless travel that we see. Singapore is soon going to go passportless. So AI is helping with personal identification to make that journey more smooth. The opportunity that I see in using AI in a more powerful way would be to solve some of our biggest problems globally. And that would be areas like destination management and planning. We've all experienced over-touristed places that have been polluted, too much traffic. And there's, Asia Pacific is the growth engine for travel. And we're going to see more and more secondary, tertiary, and new destinations developed. And I would love to see AI leveraged so that, we can evaluate scenarios of what's healthy and what's not. And so it goes into urban development, not necessarily urban. I would also say ecotourism and those remote places. Can we model, a better way to do things? And I think that would be most impactful, in addition to the plethora of ways that it's being used right now.
Leemon?
Okay, I'm just going to do a fourth wall breakthrough. How many of you are practitioners of AI or machine learning? I see one hand. Okay, I see a few. Okay, so the way I would see it is this way. If you can touch, feel, and count things, there is no need to model anything because you literally know how many of whatever exists. So that, for most of our work, is where we spent time and effort on because we know these things for certain. When you don't have that feature, then you need to get into probabilistic models. Again, I'm not getting into the realm of machine learning. You're still doing things which are probabilistic. So Gaussian distributions, things of that nature. Where you can't do that is when you probably need to step into the realm of machine learning. And we use a whole lot of things. I mean, LLMs is a small thing for us because our product is absolutely statistical because we run a gambling business. So there isn't a tangible product. It is all a prediction game, half of it, and half of it is pure random numbers. So it's absolutely statistical. So yes, and in the machine learning space, it doesn't always have to be generative. You don't have to embed vectors for every little problem that you have. There are much simpler approaches. RNNs work, LSTMs work. So that would be my view. I mean, every tool that's there in the repository has got some purpose, and make sure that you've got the right tool put in place.
Thanks, Leemon. Maybe I think between you and kind of Amitabh also, or even Chetan, I guess, a question that at a consumption level, I think the consumption of outcomes, which is coming from AI engines, is becoming easier. Underneath that, there is still so much work that needs to be done. So what we see is challenges around data platforms, challenges around simple, even data indexation, data cleansing, right? And without that, you're going to get garbage, hallucinations, and all of it, which are still there. how are you seeing it from an industry perspective, some of the bigger challenges which are limiting the industrialized use of AI?
I think that's a great question, Gaurav. I think there is a saying that's been going around for a few years now, which is basically there is no AI without IA. Basically, there is no artificial intelligence without an information architecture. So everything, as you said, starts with data. So when I say starts with data, it's not just how you lay out your data architecture. It's also about the quality of the data. It's also about the source of the data. To your point, copyrights. Are we infringing on copyrights when we actually access this data? Do we trust this data? So the first thing I think becomes a foundational architecture that clients are trying to put together, which actually gets data that you can trust, that you can govern, and that you can actually use in a business context. Because every decision you make on this data, somewhere or the other, reflects your brand, which is the precise existence, I think, for every organization, right? Serve your clients, protect your brand so that there is trust. So to me, that forms the most foundational aspect. So the clients that we work with, a lot of the work that we are still doing with is in the data space, where we are looking at data architectures. How can we access data where it is? You don't have to get it to where you are. You need to be able to access data where it is in a very secure manner. I think Liz and you, both of you talked about security. I think data security, again, becomes a very important dimension. So that's definitely one. The second big area I think we're beginning to see challenges is on skills. Are there enough skills in-house? Are there enough skills with vendors that we work with, for example, to be able to build solutions that can create value over a period of time, right? It's basically a phased approach over a period of time. So skills is a very, very big, focus. Again, here, embracing the ecosystem, adopting open technologies, being able to collaborate not just within the organization, but also across the organization, building those strategic partnerships with open source community, working closely, I think becomes very important, right? And what we have done essentially in IBM is open source a lot of our models itself, like foundational models. I think we made some announcements in terms of even Granite, which is our model, which is very focused on use cases, industry use cases, get them open source so that you can actually tweak, tune, and make them work for you better so that you can create value over a period of time. So I kind of go back to trust in data, data security, skills, and working with an ecosystem to create that end value, I think is where.
Well, thanks, Chetan. Very, very useful. Maybe I'll just kind of try to come at also the conclusion of some of these things in terms of how does it manifest for organizations. And Amitabh, keen to start with you here because you shared some really good examples. What should be the measure of success, or let's say KPIs, for an organization as they would adapt to some of these leading edge, cutting edge, new age tech, right? How do you measure success? Give me some examples of KPIs which an organization could look to put. So
again, I think broadly speaking, we can have high level points, but I think we live in Asia. So if you look at the organizational psychology of this part of the world, there are nuances. There are nuances which are cultural in nature. The economic indicators are very different than a West. The impact of AI or democratization of AI has different results what happens in this part of the world. So I think the first point is nuance the impact of AI in the context of the country, the region. I personally feel we live in Singapore, and in Singapore, I think there was a index which was carried out, a survey which was carried out in Asia Pacific by Salesforce, if I remember, where Singapore got rated at 70.1, and followed by Japan about 59.8, which basically meant what is the leadership around AI and governance in this part of the world. So if you look at the application of AI first thing first, the organization which is a tech provider like ours should be embedding AI in the product and the offerings itself. So is that the first filter? Second is, regardless of the models which we develop, and there are many today, and I think Chetan did point in the beginning, it is a business outcome. Is there a business value created by the use cases across industry? For example, Leemon was speaking about, and it's a common sense approach. If you don't need the way you want to look at data, because you spend a lot of time with the data, it will speak the language you want it to do, right? So again, different industries. So in the places where we are working, especially in the banking and financial industry, whether it is on the data security side, where we are going beyond working on the quantum key distribution to solve some of the data security problems. There are huge ransomware issues which are there. Then when we look at the broader network or the cloud fabric per se, the intelligent routing, which becomes the highway for developing transformational applications on top of it. So unless you have, and it is again analogizing what Chetan was talking about, unless you have the highway or the road well built, your northbound applications will not. So whether it's your private cloud, whether it's your edge, whether it's AI capabilities or the use cases which you're going to build, is built on top of the highway which you built on. And I think that's where the digital infrastructure comes in, and hence your plumbing of applications on top of it makes sense, whether it is hard-coded AI or a no-code or a low-code.
Amit has truly spoken like a consultant.
Sorry, can I just add a small
please.
thing here? So as you work your journey through cloud, no cloud, premise, whatever it be, make sure you've got a data dictionary in place. Because usually what happens is you've got that one engineer who's been with the company for 40 years. He's the only one who can unwrap a JSON. And that's about it. So before you do anything, before you get extremely ambitious, talk to some folks, spend a little bit of time and money, get your data dictionary in place, because that's the only way you can democratize whatever asset you have. Back to you.
I'd like to add to Amitabh's comment about, I think you need to start with the problem in mind. As the minister said, it shouldn't be technology for technology's sake. And there's a saying, you shouldn't have a solution looking for a problem. So important, whatever organization it is, you need to keep the mission and, the key opportunities and needs in mind first, and then leverage the toolkit. So I do think that's important. And I do, I spent some time in the Bay Area and Silicon Valley. I have a number of friends in the various large tech companies. And, often I hear them say, they have to remind their people, for example, Google Maps, you're not designing it for Mountain View. Twitter, they have to realize the implications they have around the globe. So I think it is important to, have a view to what is important and then apply the toolkits.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Amitabh and Leemon. See, most of the boards we speak to, everybody is worried about innovation and the pace of change on one side, and the other side of the worry is risk. Risk overall, enterprise level risk, geopolitical risk, risks of AI, kind of, you can make it as a combination of many things, right? So my kind of question to the panel here is that, how do you find that balance in moving at a pace, innovating, experimenting, failing, succeeding, and compliance and risk? Where is that balance, and have you seen some best-in-class examples of that balance? Leemon, we start with you. You work in a very interesting industry, so, yeah.
Oh, okay. So we're kind of blessed at Singapore Pools that way, because we've got a fairly diverse board coming from banking, from technology, from the public sector. So we've got a board that truly appreciates the investments in technology, but they're also extremely cautious in terms of the outcomes we achieve. Because as a gambling operator, we don't chase revenues. We just want to make sure that the problem gambling or social harm is minimized. So our challenges and outcomes are extremely different. And our board sort of make sure that every board meeting, they want a strategic update in terms of what have we achieved as a company. Of course, you've got the other sub-boards, like the audit review committees and the other committees, or the tech committee. So it is important that as a startup or whatever it be, as you form your board, in addition to your board, see if you can have consultative sub-boards. It can be a tech committee which comprises of people from the industry. It doesn't have to be your main board member. So go a little bit outside of the organization, make sure that you've got wide representation, and trust me, you will get sufficiently useful inputs from them.
Thank you, Chetan.
So a great question, and I agree with Leemon. But I think if I kind of look at this, I would look at this as a 3-layered approach. I think the top layer is a little bit more of a business-centric discussion. I think this is where why are you using this technology needs to be very clear. I know we've all said this many times, like why are you using this technology and what role is it really playing here? I think the understanding at the business level needs to be very clear. And at IBM, and I'm speaking this on behalf of IBM, and I think our approach is AI is always here to assist. So the use cases that we work on are primarily assist use case to help us do our jobs better. So there needs to be a very clear clarity of what exactly are you trying to achieve at the board level, at the CEO, CXO level, right? That becomes more an understanding of why are we on the journey in the first place. I think the second layer for me is how do you bring various roles together to set up a little bit of a governance around how you operate this entire use case, both from a business perspective and a technology perspective. This means bringing together your operations team, your security team, your data scientists, your application developers, and having a bit of governance around, do we have the same understanding as what the board and some of the CXOs have? Because we are trying to operationalize this use case. And that becomes governance, right? That becomes trust and governance. And the bottom layer, I think, which is very critical, I think comes back from 2 or 3 things, right? So one is thinking security from day one. I'm sure a lot of you would have heard of this term DevSecOps, which is basically where you start looking at security at the beginning versus as an afterthought. If you do that, you've taken care of your workloads that could be on hybrid, it could be multi-cloud, it could be on-prem, it could be on hyperscalers, doesn't matter. But you're thinking about it from day one, right? So think security from day one. Second one, I think we talked about it, is around data. Do you trust the data? Do you have lineage for the data? Do you have copyright for the data? Have you removed profanities, things like that, that can lead to decisions that could hurt you and your brand? So that becomes the entire piece on data trust, data governance, right? So you've got security set up, you've got your data strategy clearly set up, and then you're using AI to primarily assist in making decisions. I think if you start with this posture at 3 levels, Gaurav, I think at least you have a starting. And a lot of our clients are doing that. That's where a lot of our clients are coming from.
No, thanks, Chetan. Thank you. I'm just conscious of time. We're coming to just a very close of it. So maybe before we conclude it, to each one of you, see we have a mixed audience, large enterprises, SMBs, and from within ASEAN region. In the context of pace of change, tech adoption, need to stay relevant, skills, many variables, right, which I guess everybody faces irrespective of the size of the organization, right? If you were to leave 1 or 2 key messages which you think should be looked at by everybody as you get onto this journey or as you look to find higher returns from this journey, what would they be? We start with you, Amitabh.
Very deep question, firstly, right? And I think the span of companies which are either in the large or SME have different needs. A simplistic view, if I may, whether it's AI, whether it's cloud, whether it's innovation, it needs to answer 3 basic questions. Is it addressing the cost curve of the company? Is it addressing revenue curve of the company? Or is it addressing customer experience? That's it. Beyond it, it's all, call it English or whatever. So these are the 3 metrics which any of those technologies should be addressing. Now, if you look at, and I think especially on the SME side, not to get taken away with the noise of AI cloud, what makes sense, if it addresses cost, it addresses revenue, if it addresses customer experience, internal or external, go for it. I think that's a metric. And again, agree with it has to be sponsored top down so that it percolates right up, take security as a framework and build it up from there. Now, if you look at from a cultural standpoint, at least what we do in our organization, I think we need to first walk the talk in our setups itself. Firstly, fostering a culture of innovation. And when I say innovation or doing trainings, it's just not by classroom trainings. There is peer-to-peer learnings, there is industry engagement, and these kind of forums which we are part of. These are foundation for learning different levels. Then the other point, which is I think we very, very actively believe in our organization is to foster inclusion and diversity. And what I mean by that is bringing in diverse thought process, diverse mindset, diverse individuals coming from different background. And then we do that, we walk the talk by doing it in a setup like an F1. Tata Communications is a strategic partner for F1 for last 10 years. And we bring in women talent to expose them to the inside and outside the track, where they can get excited about the possibilities of technology, engineering, AI, and cloud. And the good news is the needle is moving where the participation of women talent in that sport, which is demanding in terms of experience, is very, very encouraging. So I think that cultural fitment, which is required, whether it's inclusion, having the digital dexterity across the board, or having the innovation program, which is fostering talent, learning across the board in a continuous basis. I think I would stop at that.
Thanks, Amitabh. Just conscious of time, maybe Chetan, Leemon, and Liz, just one point which you would like to leave on the table in that context.
I would say, like, build a culture of skills and continuous learning, and put trust around the center of everything we do. I think they would be two things I would kind of leave you with.
Yeah, I'm going to stay with one thing, which is have contextual clarity and be familiar with the concepts that you play with. If you know the tools that you're working with and you have a good understanding of the outcomes that you want, you probably would pretty much end up in the right place.
I would say a combination of good governance, risk management, and continual learning. I think Singapore is the epicenter for balancing innovation with safety, risk management. I think the minister's presentation perfectly exemplified that. And this is a country where they do things right. So we're in the best place.
Thank you, Liz. So as we draw this insightful session to a close, I think first of all, let me say my heartfelt thanks to Amitabh, Chetan, Leemon, Liz. Thank you for your insights, extremely useful. What I pick is, I think, we should continue to embrace, I think, innovation, strategic partnerships, experimentation, learning, a culture, I think a topic which came up quite a lot, and relevance to what you're doing. Be clear about what are you attempting to achieve. So that's important, and that keeps us resilient and relevant in the future. So thank you so much, everybody, and pleasure having you here.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gaurav.